Out here, just east of Pinnacle Mountain, there's this trail, and it starts here, and it goes all the way from here to Oklahoma. It's over 200 miles of trails through the woods, alongside rivers and lakes, and through the mountains and hills, and it's beautiful. And along the way, there are lots of places where it kind of goes out into, you're walking through the woods, and it opens out into like a field, and like the trail just kind of disappears. Like this well-marked trail that we're on right now would just kind of go into this prairie, this grass place, and it just kind of vanishes. Or you have to go across the road, and you have to kind of look on the other side of the road, and you have to figure out where the trail picks up, because you might actually follow the road for a little while and then move back into the woods. And it does all kinds of weird stuff like that. But to help people find their way through, people have marked these blue patches like are on this tree right here. And all the way from here to Oklahoma, about every 30 or 30 feet or 50, 60, 100 feet, there's a tree or a post or something that has this little blue square on it. And it's meant to help you be able to just find your way. See, if you were just going to walk around in the woods for a while aimlessly, then it wouldn't be a big deal. You could just do that and be fine. But if you want to get from one place to the other, then you have to have some way of knowing if you're going in the right direction and if you're actually getting somewhere. So that's what these are for. And if you go, like, if we start here, and we can just walk a little bit down to the next one, and you kind of see how this works. I mean, it's real easy to just, when you're not sure where to go, you just pick up your eyes and you look a little bit ahead, and you can tell, man, this is where the trail picks up, and it goes from to the next place. At some places it's real easy like this, where the trail is already kind of worn down anyways, but like some of those other places, it gets really obscure and it gets kind of ambiguous. And I think there's a pretty fair metaphor for life there, that sometimes if we're trying to get from, if we want to just walk around in the wilderness, walk around in the woods for a while, then we don't really need markers. But if we believe that we're trying to get from one place to another, and I believe that is the Christian vision of life, that we're on a trajectory to being a different kind of person. Well, I think then we need to have some kind of markers to help us know whether we're on the right track or not. Things that can help us pick up the scent of where we're going. But sometimes it's ambiguous. Sometimes it's real easy because the track before us is pretty worn down and we can tell where we kind of need to go. But then there's other times when life just opens up, or our own hearts are kind of just filled with ambiguity and obscurity, and it's so hard to tell if we're really growing or changing or becoming more like the people that we're supposed to become. And sometimes it's like we kind of think we have the trail, and it reminds me of like Hansel and Gretel. This story, this old tale where they scatter these breadcrumbs behind them as they go into the woods, and then the birds come and they pick up these crumbs. So the kids like turn around at some point and they try to find their way back home, but they're lost because their trail's gone. And I think a lot of people live in life at that place too, where the things that they think are marking out their life are just gone, and they don't have any place to be able to find direction. It reminds me of this in the prophet Isaiah in the 5th chapter. He even kind of says to the people of that day, he says, "Woe to you who put darkness for light, and you call light darkness, or you put evil for good and good for evil, or bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." And he says, you can't even tell what's good anymore to take your way. Well, I don't know if you're living in a place where the trail is really well marked for you right now, or if you're living in a place where you're kind of in this obscurity and you can't even tell if you're making progress or not. But I want to give you two kind of indicators that I think kind of can help us mark whether we're making growth or not, and can give us some indications about a couple of key areas of our life. The first is in relationships, and I think one of the ways that we can kind of gauge how we're growing in our ability to develop relationships and love our brothers and sisters around us is in how much trust those relationships have. And a lot of people go through their whole life and they never trust another person. And part of that is because the other people hurt them and they deserve not to be trusted. And part of it is because they themselves never learned the skill of learning to give some trust. And so I think, as we grow and I think as we mature, we're able to have that right dynamic, that right level of trust in relationships. And I want you to just think today a little bit about where you are on that scale. I mean, how hard is it for you to trust anybody? Well, I think that moving towards a place where we can be somewhat trustful with some other people, some other key relationships, I think that's a helpful thing. I think it can be a marker that we're growing and changing. Another one is in just the content of our characters, some of the little things along the way that, like being able to recognize deceit in ourselves or being able to recognize greed in ourselves and those kinds of things. I mean, how hard is it for us to notice when our hearts are being greedy or selfish is, I guess, another way to put it. And I think, trying to get rid of that selfishness is one thing, and that's a very hard task. But I think one marker that we're kind of moving in the right direction is that we can at least recognize it in ourselves. And so I want to offer you that as another place, kind of like another type of a blue blaze along the trail of your life to help mark a place of some progress. I hope that's helpful, and I hope that as you progress on your journey that you're able to kind of fight that feeling of being lost by seeing some of the little signs along the way and have confidence in the journey. Grace and peace. These are the worst hiking clothes ever.